citizens. So what to do, he asks, what to do about our individual and collective sense of helplessness and hopelessness? What to do indeed. Perhaps to answer with that yes. Because when things are wrong, when things are out of order, when people treat us unfairly, we want to do something now. So perhaps we need that stillness of the mountain. We find it harder to talk behind these instances. It is so much more tempting to armchair quarterback all the facts, to make our own determinations, to think of it or to turn away altogether. We want to solve it, to provide a channel for our righteous indignation, as immediate as looting or vilifying individual law enforcement officers, even though we know that they are human too. We want the alchemy to turn our feelings of confusion into feelings of certainty that we are standing not only on the side of love, but that we are standing on the side of right. What happens? If we stay very still, mountain still, instead of racing out to figure out what it is we are meant to do. In the midst of many, many posts about the deaths of Black men is another truth about how a visionary police chief working with a coalition of religious and civic-minded people just down the road from us in Richmond have made a difference in keeping young Black men and Latino men out of jail. What if we use this as an opportunity to redouble our efforts, to support efforts to bring this kind of change to East County where it is desperately needed, where lives are lost with disturbing regularity, and to join the voices of faith leaders across the state who are calling for investigation into the systemic conditions which may endanger the lives of Black and brown-skinned folks in this state. Be like the mountain. Remember that all truth and all experience are fleeting. How can equanimity help us to resolve that? Life is not always fair. We know this when we are faced with hostility at work, when we have to do the lion's share of work in our home or in our relationship, when someone is unfair to our child or our grandchild, or something in this complicated season seems unfair to us. We know this when we look at the evidence which is there about the existence of systemic racism, which right now is oozing out of every pore of every media outlet. What we know we cannot do, though we may not know what else to do, we cannot turn away and walk away. And that can make us rush to anger and judgment, to swing from the highs to lows as the king in the Sufi story. Or we can know that when we are ready, when we are waiting, the path that we need to walk will be there for us, and we will have the resilience to stay in the struggle and walk in love for the long haul. If we start with the idea that people, including those in this congregation who have served with law enforcement backgrounds and continue to do so, are all good people, and that those who are calling attention to the injustice in a system which disproportionately affects young men of color are also good people, then we have a better chance of being an actual force for long-term change. For just as in the days of Selma, this is about larger issues than the ones that we see at the surface. And just as it was during the civil rights era, these are not issues about individual cases, even though we focus on those individual things. When Unitarians James Reeb and Viola Luiso were killed answering the Reverend Dr. Luther King's call to bear witness under very similar conditions, people questioned their rights to be there. But they particularly questioned Luiso because she was a woman, the only white female killed, a Unitarian. Divorced and poor people questioned the basic value of her life the way people this week have been posting hateful comment after hateful comment about Eric Garner's life and value. Lueso's 6-year-old daughter was pelted with rocks and called a nigger lover's baby when she returned to school after her mother's death. Her father had to move her to another school, had armed guards watching their house for 2 years. When the family finally won a decades-long battle to have the FBI files on the case opened, they found that J. Edgar Hoover had fueled rumors about Lueso to deflect criticism from his agency. Now, we can sit here today and condemn the Ku Klux Klan members who shot this valiant woman, this mother, in the head while she was ferrying black civil rights workers, or we can condemn her neighbors who stoned a 6-year-old who had just lost her mother on her way to school. Or we can be the mountain, and we can remember how the Unitarians, who have lauded James Reeb over and over and over, were mostly quiet about Lueso, who let her be tried in the court of middle-class public opinion and then honored its verdict. 49 years and 9 months after the March on Selma, the rending rift tearing our communities apart is racism codified in a lack of economic opportunity, and it is about our country's policies around who goes to jail for certain drug-related crimes and who does not. Some of us will take a slogan like Black Lives Matter, a rallying cry from a community bereft and heartbroken, miss its political significance, and insist on rephrasing it to all lives matter. Of course, all lives matter, but that is not the point. We can be the mountain, as strong as the mountain, and believe in bettering systems and still understand that not all justice is meted equally. Life is not always fair, and it does not always honor our wishes. People do ugly things. We will have loss. The first step, however, is to understand what is given in life is given. We can grieve, we can rage, and ultimately we have very little choice but to touch the ring and accept it. David Rico suggests a deep level of acceptance, saying yes to life, treating, as he calls it, the unexpected as a guest of grace rather than fearing it as the intruder. We are going to be called out, folks. We are going to be asked to bear witness. And last night, as I was working on this sermon again and again, I kept thinking, we're going to be called out at some time that feels really inconvenient to us. Well, guess what? This morning I got a text from a member of our congregation, and we're being called out to be present in witness next Sunday at 12:30 when we're supposed to be in a congregational forum here. It's pretty inconvenient, but I know the transition committee and the board and I will have a conversation about how we respond, and those of us who can be there will be there. We're being asked to be of a massive witness of people of faith speaking out against the events of these weeks. David Rico says this: people think of love as a feeling, but love is not so much a feeling as a way of being present. Our Universalist tradition gives us love as a verb, something we are called upon to offer the world, a commitment to stand with those whose humanity is being abased. That, as it has always been, is our work. Be still. Touch the ring. Every day we are called back into our own lives, and soon, we are also called into the streets to make what we profess real, to bear witness to the power of transformation. Love and the patient mountain of truth are what we have to offer this hurting world. May we have the courage to face the truths of our lives and the truths of this world. So may it be.